Hello, Daniel. Thank you very much for participating in the EduChess Summit 2023.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here. I appreciate your bookshelves behind you.
You have a very long experience as a prestigious teacher and trainer of thousands of players. How can a chess coach contribute to making the player he coaches a better person?
So I think there's a lot of skills that you learn in chess that really transfer well in life. Um, Basically, everybody who learns chess with me and with us, they do something else in their life when they grow up. And some of the skills from chess are just really valuable, and different things matter for different students. So one student who I've thought about a lot over the years, when he was like 6, 7, 8 years old in our programs, he was just a really impulsive little boy. Like he would get excited, he would want to grab something, he would grab something, he would just, if he needed to do something, he needed to do it then. And one thing that was really valuable about chess for him is that the games that we played were touch move. So if he reached out and grabbed a piece, he had to move the piece. And he also liked winning games. And one thing that would happen to him every couple weeks is he would reach out and grab a piece in a game, and he would have to move it, and he would realize after he reached out that it was the wrong piece to touch, and then he would just kind of lose the game. That's how chess works. And he'd get upset about it. But that was really valuable for him because it wasn't just in chess that he was impulsive, it was all over his life. And so chess gave him a way to really channel that and to kind of work against it and to learn to sit on his hands, be more patient, um, think before he acted. And that's just really important for every aspect of everything he does.
Mhm. Now, there is a long controversy among educational experts about the concept of transfer. I mean, whether what one learns by practicing a passion, for instance, chess, is really useful in other fields of normal life. According to your last answer, it looks like you see players applying the qualities they develop in chess in other fields. Can you give some concrete examples of that?
I mean, it's obviously really hard to give concrete examples. Like, uh, so the specific kid who I was thinking of in that answer, uh, in fact, like I know him now 12 years later, maybe 13 years later, because he started teaching for us when he was in university, working with other young students. And I know that now as a whatever 20-year-old or 21-year-old, he no longer is impulsive like that. But also lots of kids who didn't play chess uh, become less impulsive between the ages of like 8 and 20 because that's part of growing up. But I do think there really is something there. And I feel like for me personally as well, like I specifically learned things from chess that I took elsewhere in my life. So one of them was just being more patient and working through things and thinking through them. And another one is when you lose a game of chess, it feels really important, especially if you're little. And so a lot of kids cry when they lose games. Um, and one thing that's really nice about chess is it gives you a perfect way to go back and look and see what you did wrong and figure out what you should have done differently and to learn from those mistakes. And that's just an incredibly valuable skill in life. Like things don't always, sometimes things happen that you don't want where you tried your hardest. And maybe it's you failed a test in school, maybe it's you didn't get a job you wanted. And I think that the practice you get as a kid playing chess, going back and looking at your games and kind of taking them apart and figuring them out what to do differently in kind of a dispassionate way is really valuable later in life with other things. And it's hard to say specifically because of this game that I played when I was 9, or because of this game that she played when she was 9, when she was 22, she was able to blah, blah, blah. But I do think there's a real effect there. And I almost don't know how you could do a real study on it because it's so diffuse.
And it looks like very logical that in some fields like concentration, memory, attention, there is a transfer from chess to other fields, right?
Yeah, I've looked a little bit at that literature and I haven't I would say I'm not an expert in that, but it seems like there's something there or there's some effects, but it's again very hard to study.
Mhm. Now, more than 90% of the chess instructors and trainers I know have not received any training in pedagogy, even though they work with children. Although it is true that some of them are learning from their own experience. Don't you think that such training in pedagogy should be almost compulsory?
Um, I actually don't think I do. And when I think about my best teachers, not necessarily my best chess coaches, but even my best teachers in school, they weren't actually necessarily people who had like a master's degree in education. Like my very favorite teacher was somebody who I think basically just started a school at some point because he wanted to teach, and he did it for a couple years and he learned from what he'd been doing, and then he did it for a couple more years and he got better, and the other teachers at that school worked in the same way. And like one thing that really came through from his teaching was just his excitement and passion for what he was teaching and for working with kids. And he had all the skills you would want of a teacher. Like he had fantastic classroom management, things were pretty well organized. And a lot of what I got out of it was like he was really excited about math. So I became really excited about math. He was really excited about the history we were learning. So I became really excited about the history I was learning. And I think that's also really true for chess. And that I don't think it's like uh, bad if somebody has formal education training, but I don't necessarily know that it's important. I do think that the experience of working with kids and you have a classroom and you need the kids to behave is really important. And when we train our coaches, that's like by far the biggest focus is like you're working with a group of kids. How do you get them to behave? How do you get them to follow along? And that part we can help with some, and some of that you just learn. And if you're a enthusiastic person and you're trying really hard, you can pick up a lot of those skills pretty fast. But one thing um, that can't really be learned in quite that same way is just being excited about chess. And if the coach is really excited, that plays really well with the kids. And a passionate coach makes passionate students. And one of the things that I do well and that I think all our best coaches do well is just like if the kids have an exciting idea, I'm really excited about it. I'm like, oh man, Queen B3 is a great idea here. I see what your idea is. You're thinking about taking on F7, you're thinking about taking on B7. It's a great idea. Unfortunately, it actually doesn't quite work here because of knight A5. And then they can go like, oh, okay, let's think about this more. And that enthusiasm is probably the most important thing, even more maybe than like chess skill. Is just being able to be enthusiastic and to show that enthusiasm to your students.
But somehow, what are you explaining shows that those coaches have some knowledge, or maybe some intuitive knowledge, at least on emotional intelligence or pedagogy somehow, right?
Uh yeah, I think some of our coaches do have some like formal teaching training or they have teaching experience, but some of our people who are really good are
Mm.
just they started with us and maybe they helped out in a classroom for a little bit and then before they started teaching on their own and they kind of learned as they went. Um, and so I don't I think experience is really important. But I'm not sure the formal education aspect is as important.
Okay. Thank you very much, Daniel, for sharing with so many people how much you have learned throughout your career. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Leotxo. It was a total pleasure chatting with you.
Thanks a lot, Daniel, for a very interesting and a bit controversial interview. And now let us listen to someone who has been able to come all the way from America to Budapest, Jerry Nash. I know him very well because he is one of the world's leading experts on educational chess. Right now, he is the chairman of the FIDE Education Commission.